those streams like Focus Stars, New Jersey, Michigan
Okay.
games. He once did like a podcast with someone, and the whole thing was in delay. I think he posted it. I don't think they realized. So I tried to watch that, and it's like the sound was like whatever, a few minutes behind. I'm talking.
Oh my
Eventually, they
god.
just took it down. But they literally did like I think a 2 hour podcast without realizing that's what was going on. And of
That's a,
course, he has to stream, obviously because he probably just forgot that it's on delay because he actually streams playing.
that's amazing.
So yeah, well, at least he realized it earlier than 2 hours into it.
There we go. There we go. Every time I try to get back to doing something like this, it always ends up being a learning curve. Um, I just fucking hate YouTube. I fucking hate it. It's the it, how does this have to be a rocket science? Okay. Anyhow, um, can you
All right.
check on your end if my channel is live?
Oh, how do I do that?
Just go to my YouTube channel.
Oh, okay, hold
Oh, actually, never mind. I got it.
on. Okay,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We're good. Okay. Sorry that took forever. Um,
that's fine.
okay. So, uh, just to brief my viewers, I don't think I've posted on my channel in I haven't posted on my channel in months. But as far as poker content, it's been probably like a year or something. So it's been quite a long time. So welcome back, guys. I am here with a good friend of mine, Simon. Um, he plays online full time, mostly just six max and ring, and but yeah, he plays full time, and he agreed to do a series with me on sort of an introduction to Heads Up No Limit. Um, so this first session will be uh, basically just introduction to pre-flop and flop fundamentals. Um, it's going to be a tad bit more of a theoretical discussion and how that should impact sort of how we generally think about the game and how that differs from our baselines and six max or ring. Um, so this is you know it's going to be a bit more interesting in the theory sense, but if you're not so much interested in that and you're more interested in the strategy, that's going to be more of the second half of the stream and future streams. Um, but ultimately, we definitely want to be taking these sort of core fundamentals into account on, um, especially pre-flop and flop, um, and then these things are going to heavily carry over into like turn probes. Um, but yeah, basically later you get in the tree, the more it's going to start to look like um, later street play as you'd see it in ring games. Just because your strategies on later streets are going to be um, a bit more polar on average. But where you see a huge discrepancy is, relative between heads up element and ring play. Or these earlier position or earlier street plays nodes. Um, so we can just sort of hop right into this. Um, yeah, we're just
Sounds
going.
good to me.
Yeah. We're while I'm getting this pre-flop viewer loaded, Simon, if you could just give a brief introduction to yourself and or why you have interest in learning heads up and element.
Sure. So I'm a full-time six max guy. I play in American facing games, New Jersey, Nevada, Michigan. Pools anywhere from basically all the stakes 2K and L and down, whatever it takes to get 10 tables running. So a lot of 500, but sometimes some 200, but most of the time just 500, 1K and 2K. And been playing for a very long time. At least I think of myself as a pretty accomplished six max player. Never studied no limit. I mean, never studied heads up, but I would like to get at least like relatively good at it because kind of have at least some aspirations for maybe running the lobbies. But and to do that, you need to battle people off of the tables. That's kind of the goal of this for me. Like I know six max pretty well, and I kind of just want to bootstrap if possible. Uh, Heads up off of that. And it sounds like from what you're saying, if all the main differences are in pre-flop and flop, it shouldn't be that crazy for
Yeah,
somebody who's good at six max to get good at heads up.
yeah, and I mean, um, if someone who sort of knows how to study effectively and has a decent grasp on basic poker theory, sifts through pre-flop and flop simulations for a short period of time, they should be able to pick up pretty quick. Why we're seeing some of these deviations on earlier streets. Um, so for some of you, this will be review, especially if you've received coaching from me on the topic of heads up and element in the past. This is just mandatory square one. So um, yeah. Um, Trying to find. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, so the post flop sims that I'm using today are utilizing low rake pre-flop simulations. So we're just going to stick with that. Um, so this will be, um, yeah, we're just going to stick with that. So here we have uh, an opening range. So the main one of the most obvious discrepancies between pre-flop play and six max and heads up no limit is there's no small blind. Well, there is a small blind, but the small blind is in position. Um, so what that means is there's no dead money, quote unquote, when it folds to the big blind. Um, so what this means generally is that the button is going to open wider because there's only one person left to act. In addition to the big blind defending a bit tighter relative to the other player's opening range. So, like in six max, um, the big blind is actually defending a bit wider relative to the button's opening range because there's that dead zero point 0.5 big blinds in the pot when it folds to the big blind after the button opens. Um, so, but again, like the button's going to be, well, I'm just going to call it the small blind. The small blind is going to be opening a lot wider and heads up no limit for for the reason of there only being one person left to act. Um,
So I guess from somebody who doesn't play heads up, the biggest thing I notice immediately is the limping. I see,
Yeah.
and I guess it's a quite significant part of the strategy, at least frequency wise. I guess just curious because I mean I've seen a lot of
Well,
people
well,
before who play heads up.
mind you that this is very low rake. This is somewhere. This is a tad lower than 2K and L rake.
Okay, so this is like so. I guess my question is the first immediate question is: say I'm playing heads up like 1 KNL with somebody on a six max table, which is not even a heads up table, just trying to battle for the table. How much of a difference that's going to make?
Not much, and I personally I just stick to a single 2.2 open.
Okay, so you don't use you don't recommend using multiple sizes.
Well, you can. I just haven't. Uh, like if I was playing significant heads up volume, I I might. Um, if especially if I was dedicating significant study time to it. Um,
Hmm.
and well, it makes a lot more sense to use multiple open sizes heads up as opposed to ring, um, because you're opening well, you're v pipping so many more hands, um, and just heads up no limit fundamental is if you're putting money into the pot with uh, significantly more unique classes of hand strength, you should be splitting these hand classes into different sizes. Um, and pre-flop and heads at no limit certainly isn't an exception. Um, but yeah, I mean, personally, I just stick to a 2.2 open, especially since a lot of the heads up no limit I play is at like 500 and 0. And it's really just to like keep tables open and hold down lobbies. But if I was, um, open setting 2K or whatever, and looking for heads up action, I'd probably be dedicating a bit more time to studying heads up and pre-flop play in general. But if you do wish to use multiple sizes, which is totally legitimate, um, you know, splitting between like 2.2 and 2.8 or something, is totally reasonable. Or limp in 2.5. Both of those things are valuable, and the higher the rate gets, um, the less you're going to limp. So if you're playing, and that's a function of being in position, by the way. Um, well, let me think about that. Yeah, yeah, I believe that's correct. Might need to double check myself on that, but regardless, yeah, splitting sizes heads up is certainly viable. And if you have the time to implement that, then go for it. Um,
I mean, I'm more curious about the limping. Like, how much of V is there to be had from this?
Not
Just like
much.
okay.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
playing size is whatever. It's nothing new to me, but like it's just the limping is what's like. Obviously, I haven't limped a bun in six max, so I know limit stuff.
Yeah. I mean, limping the button's definitely sort of like a pretty unique thing, especially to a ring player. Like, if we look at you know, blind v blind and six max, I mean, we're limping over 20% of the time, and then um, if it's like if it's low rake, it's a lot more. Um, but yeah, I mean that's just a function of being out of position. Like the
But yeah,
EV.
that's different.
What's that?
Well, yeah, I mean, small blind limping obviously is different.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously you have that half blind in there, um,
Yeah,
but the EV of opening relative to completing is a lot closer when you're out of position, just because your realization is so bad. Um, But here, even at like, you know, I guess this would be the equivalent of like 3K and I'll rake. We're still only doing, like a bit over 15% limping, but that's just a function of being in position. Um, yeah, so yeah, as far as opens go, you're going to see. So just for someone that might be interested in the prospect of splitting sizes, um, when you so here in the sim we have a limp, a small open, a medium open, big open, um, and anyone who's looked at preflop sims with multiple sizes is gonna sort of catch on to the fact that the medium to bigger sizes is going to use a more polar strategy. So like, you know, this little sliver of green here um, is going to be the three big blind open, and you're going to see hands like strong broadways and big pairs, strong ace x suited. Like the ace king off, ace queen off. Use this size a bit more than most hands, and then on the other end of the polar strategy, you're gonna have like the jack deuce off, or the jack deuce, 10 deuce suited, 9 deuce suited, um, and yeah, if you, for example, ran a sim with just like limp and a three big blind open, then it would look sort of like this, just much more extreme in the sense that it's going to be the hands that open are going to be the really good hands, really bad hands, um, but that's nothing new. Um, and then facing opens. So we're just for introductory discussion, we're just going to look at the response against the 2.5 open. Um, it's so what I've discussed on my channel previously with regards to big blind response against opens is we generally use a polar strategy because when you reopen the action, you risk getting 4-bet, so you sacrifice some sort of portion of your theoretical EV by allowing your opponent to 4-bet you. So, instead of 3-betting Jack 10 suited or Queen 10 suited or King 9, you'd rather just 3-bet this lower shit or, like the Queen 7 off, King 8 off, as sort of like the bluffing range to just fold to a 4-bet, and you're not sacrificing that much of the pot relative to your hand strength by getting 4-bet. But the 3-bet range is sort of what you would expect. Okay, I just got a notification from Zoom that we have 10 minutes left on the meeting. I mean, we can just restart it, but anyhow.
Oh yeah, you don't have Zoom Pro. It's fine. Neither do I. You have to restart.
Yeah, I'm not paying for that bullshit. Um, yeah, so it's gonna be like the ace 9 suited, ace 10 off. But instead of one thing that's interesting about heads up no limit is you see a lot of the 3-bet bluffs come from a lot of lower cards. Um, and the reason for that is if you 3-bet something like 8-6 suited or 7-5 or something, it's significantly less likely that you're up against a hand where you have like 12% equity or whatever. Like in ring, if the button opens, or maybe a slightly more extreme example, like if the cutoff opens and you 3-bet the big blinds and you get called, it's significantly more likely that you're up against jacks or something. But in heads up, like, say you 3-bet to like this 11.5 size or whatever, like, like both of your whole card, both of your pair outs could be live very often when imposition is calling 3-bets with Queen 10 off or Queen 8 suited, all that stuff. So
Yeah, that's probably like the wildest thing to me. Sitting there calling 3-bets like Queen 10 off.
what's that?
That's probably the wildest part to me. Not calling 3-bets like Jack 10 off versus 11.5. It's like unheard of for for a ring player, six max.
Oh
Oh, for
yeah,
a ring.
yeah. No, it's just yeah, not a thing that exists. So then
10 9 off is apparently a mix. Wow.
yeah, yeah. So
Would
it's quite loose.
have never
This
thought
is
that.
yeah. This is also low rake for reference. So like this so like the difference thresholds just off the top of my head I believe like the jack 10 off is going to be a lot closer to like four better folds. um ace 9 off like low frequency four better folds. um and then uh the the rest of the response looks sort of congruent. Like I'm pretty sure 8-5.
I mean, if we want to compare, I think there's aren't there just like more regular heads up ranges too available?
Yeah, I mean
We can just look it up
the
side. We can look it up side by side just
yeah,
for
yeah.
the sake.
So this is the response for um 500 rake. So it's actually a bit more similar.
Yeah,
It's just
I don't see much of a difference.
the king deuce suited is four better fold, and you're like four bet jamming a bit more,
If I can do this
which
apparently, if I can do this apparently mixes in what is it, a four bet, a jam?
a jam. That's an MTT play.
What the fuck?
Yeah, yeah. It's a thing you see in
This is
MTT sims.
yeah. Okay. Well, the
But
MCT players are right all along,
what's that?
huh? The MCT players are right all along. Just send it in.
Yep, yep. Just send it in. Um, yeah, I mean,
I
yeah,
mean, surprisingly, I don't see much of a difference between the rake. I don't think. I guess the rake is not a big a deal. Heads up.
well, it's
Or is that
I mean,
not a
I wouldn't say that. I mean, this specific response against a three bet. I guess some of the suited hands are doing more folding. Like Jack 7 is mostly folding. Queen 7 is folding. Queen 5 is doing some folding. Um,
Okay, so small hands are doing more folding. Okay.
yeah, like the 4-3 is folding, stuff like that. Um, but the high card
I see.
hands seem to be doing okay. It's like the hands with Broadway cards in them. So like Jack 10 off or Queen 10 off seem to be sort of similar.
Okay,
Um,
that makes sense.
and then the EV of call goes up in the low rake sim. So like King Jack off, King 10 off are doing a decent bit of four betting in the high rake sim. Um,
Hmm.
but
Okay.
they're just calling here. So um, yeah, and then so yeah, we can look at the five bets, but this is just 100 big blinds. Um, so it's whenever you three bet and get four bet with a pocket pair, this is something that is certainly unique to heads up no limit. You just end up ripping it in a lot, um, even when you were the uh, sorry, misspoke. You're out of position, so you just end up trying to deny equity these lower pocket pairs. Because if you have like eights and sevens, so notice that like tens would be doing significantly better against like the four bet. Well, I wouldn't say significantly better, but at least a decent bit better against the four bet call off range than eights or sevens. However, eights and sevens unblock more bluffs. Um, so you unblock like the queen ten off, jack 10 off that fold against a jam. So you deny equity from those hands and unblock more bluffs. Like the small blind is not going to be using many hands with a 9 or an 8 in them. because the hands they three bet with those sorts of cards in them are going to be, uh, decent calls. Like if they um, three bet 10-9 or something, like no need to rip it, or four bet I should say. They can just call. So that's a bit interesting. And then in theory, if you were to um, three bets, or wait, what is this? Yeah, if you were to three bet a hand like sixes or fives at some low frequency, these hands are both. Well, I thought fives were. I knew sixes were, but yeah, sixes are a plus EV jam. In theory, fives looks to be like a tad weak, but I think that's just because fives block more bluffs than sixes. So I guess that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, and then I guess a jam at 100 big blinds. Pretty standard stuff you see here. Except, ring players certainly aren't used to calling off ace queen off and
Man,
any pre-flop configuration. Ace queen suited certainly makes a bit more sense, but if you just look at the discrepancy between call and fold, it's like, let's see, what is that? Like 560 bigs per 100 as a call off.
I mean, one thing I noticed that aces never jam, yeah?
Yeah, that's certainly something that never happens.
So I'm curious, if you're playing against somebody heads up who's just jamming aces, how much does that change your response?
Well, I'll say I can't ever remember someone five bet jamming aces and heads up no
When you
limit.
when you're
Even
just starting
fish.
tables versus six max?
What's that?
I feel like the six max guys were just starting tables jam like
Like in
really.
heads up?
Yeah, when they happen to be heads up, just for, like the six max table. I
Mm,
seriously doubt. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not giving people enough credit, but I feel like they're jamming aces.
yeah, you're probably not giving people enough credit. I've never seen that. Oh shit! The Zoom meeting ended. Okay, I'm going to. I have to invite Simon back into the call. Sorry guys, I was a bit distracted. I haven't been keeping up with the chat. David Rhodes says, could you show the big blind response to open again real quick? Yeah. I think, are you referring to people jamming aces against a 4-bet? I mean, obviously if it's a fish, like it's anyone's guess, but, and I'm sure they do it, well, I know they do it a lot more, but I don't think regs would be ripping in aces and heads up no limit. At least the ones I play against.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Um, Viewers, can you hear Simon? Okay. Um,
There's actual viewers.
there's
That's
two of
cool.
them. We got the whole gang.
Uh,
Yeah.
whoever's out there.
Yeah. Cool Kids Club. Um, yeah. So, um, yeah.
I guess you have to reshare your screen because
Well,
I
well,
can't see
there was a viewer, agreeing with you that uh, he thinks some regs would be inclined to rip it in against a four bet with aces, since
I mean, I feel
they're out of position.
because here's the thing: like these guys don't know what's going on. They're not studying heads up. It's just like American six max eggs. Like,
Well,
oh, they
yeah,
know.
but it's. I mean,
I
I,
play
I
about
see
my
I see
games.
people over trapping and ring. I mean, like I I, I don't know. Maybe that's sort of a biased view. Anyhow, I don't. I'm gonna be honest. I don't really care. Um, so, I mean, uh, yeah. So, and then against a big open, we start to get a more polar response. Sort of like this ace nine, ace ten off becomes indifferent, and then you start to three bet more of
I
these.
can't. I can't. So now I can't see the screen right
Ah,
now.
shit. Yeah. You gotta allow screen sharing.
Oh, try now.
No.
How do I do that? It's like I turned down multiple participants can share simultaneously.
Oh, there it goes. SRV says, "Where's the part about getting someone's database?" Well, uh, SRV, I already have yours, so
Oh, yeah, SREs. All right.
yeah.
SRE. I'm gonna study a database. I'm gonna study a database for sure, 100%. I promise you.
I
And I'm gonna
mean, well,
find
I
you in
mean,
every lobby.
I
I'm gonna
mean,
find you in every lobby, and I'm gonna tank the full time bank in every hand.
well, okay.
And
Here's
then,
the
and then
thing.
I'm
I
gonna,
already okay. I sold Simon my crushing SRV course like months ago. Okay,
yeah, seriously, man. How do you think you've
so
been losing?
yeah, I mean,
We've been actually giving free coaching secretly to everybody how to beat you because we have your database. So you should just quit poker, man. It's over for you.
drawing
The
dead,
database
drawing
is in
dead.
our hands. That's it.
Yeah,
R.I.P. man. R.I.P.
R.I.P. Well, um, I digress. Uh,
We
okay.
actually love you, sir. By the way, that's why we let you back into the zenith. Oh man.
I'm pretty sure I got
Oh.
banned more recently from the Zenith Discord than SRV did.
I heard you on band. I saw you on the Discord.
I'm yeah. No, I had to get back in there to needle some people.
Oh
Um,
man.
but anyhow, yeah, here is I nothing here is like too interesting. It's really just like the shift and range construction. Like you just see a lot more of these low hands and um, yeah, but nothing too crazy. Um, so as far as post flop, I'm just gonna talk a bit about how this pre-flop stuff translates to flop play. Um, yeah, I suppose this is it. So, okay, where to even start? I mean, we're really just going to be summarizing this. I'm not going to go on a huge deep dive, but uh, this is a comparison between frequencies of a bunch of different flop lines um, relative. So it's heads up no limit sums compared to button versus big blind six max. Um, so first thing we should notice is the discrepancy in equity. So in six max, the button is going to have a significant equity advantage. When you're considering, you know, 1,500 combos of hands or whatever it is, um, uh, like a discrepancy of 4% or 3.5% is quite a lot. Um, and you're going to see this even more pronounced on a variety of textures. Um, and yeah, so well, what do I want to touch on next? I mean, so general. So if we look down here at the back frequencies, this is probably the best place to start. Is in six max cumulatively, um, the imposition bet frequency in a single race pot is going to be around 65%, and in heads up limit, it's going to be right around 50. Um, but yeah, this is just really a consequence of equities being very, very even in heads up no limit. Um, and yeah, in six max, the betting frequency just really shoots up. What you'll see a lot of is, so first of all, the imposition strategy in heads up no limit is going to be significantly more polar. So you're just not going to see like on those traditionally really good boards for imposition in six max. For instance, king high double Broadway or high wet boards. You're going to see well over 50% betting frequency. And then in heads up no limit, you're just going to generally see a much more polar strategy. So for instance, on something like king queen low, two tone, in low rake six max, the betting frequency is going to be around 96, essentially a range bet, and then it's also going to be often for a smaller size, and then in heads up no limit, it's going to be significantly less than 50. And then so if you just like bump this texture up like ace king x, this betting frequency in the heads up config is going to go down even more. But you're like in six max, you're going to see imposition shift to a much more polar strategy. But yeah, in general, but the way I would think about this is like this king queen x texture is sort of congruent to the value hand incentives of six max. Like in heads up, there are so many combinations of hands in play on both ends, right? So if you have a king on something like king queen x, you really don't need much protection. But when you're in six max, and even though imposition has a stronger range relative to the big blind, the big blind's range is going to be significantly tighter and high card heavy relative to heads up no limit, um, meaning the out of position player is like in six max, the out of position player is going to have an overcard to the board significantly more often on pretty much every texture that isn't ace high, right? Um, so once you move up to like these ace king X textures, like protection just isn't a thing. Um, but similar concept on something like king queen X and heads up no limit. Like the out of position player isn't going to have an overcard of the board very often relative to their entire range. So we just end up shifting to like this much lower bet frequency, much more polar strategy. Um, yeah, and then okay, so I guess I'll take a break for a second. Simon, do you have any immediate questions?
I guess just making sure I understand this data right, but I don't know if you planning to touch on this later. I see you have something like all two tone and like this low two tone stuff where like heads up you actually bet way more.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that
So
something we get?
that's also interesting. So in heads up no limit, you have a lot more low cards in your hand, which on something like an ace wheel board would be quite bad for the imposition player. The imposition player isn't opening like five deuce or 4-3 or like high low offsuit hands. Because like on something like ace low low, like just the presence of like having eight deuce with a backdoor or like queen four with a backdoor or whatever, really really boosts equity. Just having like range interaction with those low cards is quite valuable. So then you actually see imposition betting more on these lower textures and um, than you would at six max. Um, so yeah, so like in six max, betting a bit over 50% and heads up no limit betting borderline high frequency. Um, so yeah, certainly interesting. And then, but this also translates to uh, these low connected boards. So like in heads up, you're going to be betting like a bit over mid frequency. I mean, this is a discrepancy of like 16-17% here between six max and heads up, right? Just because we have so much more range interaction. The only thing keeping the bet frequency down well, how do I put this? No, I changed my mind. That's not true. But yeah, I mean, the similar principle going on in both spots here. And heads up, the imposition player has more range interaction with these lower boards. This also allows the imposition player to bet a bit bigger. So on a lot of these low connected boards, you're going to see imposition using like a more 3/4 size, as opposed to ring, where in later configurations, imposition will often use something around half pot, and then in earlier positions it'll get even smaller. Just on something like if it's like hijack versus big blind on 6-5 deuce, like the imposition player is just at a very significant not advantage or not disadvantage. So they'll be c betting less and smaller, whereas in later configurations they'll just be betting less and slightly bigger. But in heads up, not so much of a concern. It's like nut advantage really is mitigated by quite a bit. it's also why some of the more traditional teachings and flop CBET sizing is probably a bit outdated. Like claiming claiming that we can have overbets on 10-5 deuce rainbow and 6 max on the flop is because of nut advantage. It's not so much the case. It's really just that the hands that want to bet very big are less worried about running into the nuts. Um, like I think the term nut advantage is pretty outdated, but anyhow,
I mean, that never made sense to me from the beginning because what does it have to do with the nuts? What like kings
well,
want to do?
yeah. I mean, it's just a misnomer in the sense that
I mean, the reason why
like
those things bet is because they just want the king three to fold, so like queens can just keep betting for all the money on turn and river. That's all.
yeah, it's really just function of doing what your hand wants to do,
Yeah,
and whenever your opponent, like the more often your opponent outdraws you on the flop, the less you want to pile chips
I
in.
mean, it's a combination of two things. It's a combination of like that, and then like you were gonna stack off anyways. Like you're gonna stack off versus like check raise bad bet anyways on a break run out with queens on that high board. So that's why it's better to pile the money in yourself to make like overcards fold. That's
Mm-hmm.
all.
Mm-hmm. Want to
It's a combination of those two things. And I think the only way the nut advantage comes into this is that they don't have enough nut hands for you to not want to stack off with queens on a break run out. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the difference from like a board like 6, 7, 5. You're not gonna stack off with queens on most runouts, so that's why you're never gonna overbet the flop. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for
I
sure.
think that's how not quote unquote not advantage ties into it. It's not so much about not advantage; it's more about the percentage of nut hands in range in relation to like the amount of pot left to be put in. I'm pretty sure there
Yeah,
will be no
that's
overbets.
probably the best way to put it. Like relative to um, how many big blinds you're trying to get in on average across all the different lines
Yeah,
in the flop line you're selecting. I'd
like
say
I
that's
never like I would be curious to see if overbetting on a flop just fades out entirely, like 200 big blinds, for example.
um,
I'm sure it probably doesn't, but I'm sure there's some stack depth where like it fades out.
well in well I think in single raise pots the if I recall correctly, because I have looked into this, they're still overbetting. It's just goes slightly down in frequency and the size goes down. So instead of like, those, um,
Okay, so they're overbetting, but completely not to get the stacks in. It's just
yeah,
only
yeah,
to fold
exactly.
out. Like,
But the
okay,
biggest difference you see is in 3-bet pots. Although I did a video on that, but yeah, basically like those boards you want to have a lot of big bets. Like you still bet big, quote unquote, but it's more like instead of like pot, it's like 2/3. Um, and it's really just like when you get to 200 big blinds, it's more like the big bet is like 2/3. Um, but
yeah, it makes sense.
yeah. Anyhow, let's see, we've been going for about 50 minutes here. Do you have anything you want to pick out and talk about or questions?
Not yet. No.
Okay, we can should cap off the stream. We'll look at a few boards.
I guess what I want to do before what I would like to do before we leave is to like make some like at least for the next few videos, like so I know what to expect. Like, do you have a plan? Like, what do you have in mind?
Yeah,
Are we gonna
yeah.
tackle this?
So I've been kind of back and forth on how exactly I want to structure this. Like, if I want to do like a more complete roadmap type thing, or if I want to do like, you know, 4 or 5 chunky videos on the biggest like discrepancies in fundamentals. But if I do the former, it's going to be more short videos, sort of like this one where we just sort of run through a topic. Um, and generally, if I was doing this with a student, that's sort of how I do it. But um, I think given what you want out of what you want specifically out of this, it would make more sense to do the latter. And I feel like that's more YouTube friendly.
Yeah,
Uh,
I would like the latter more because, like, I can always go back or like go and do that type of work myself. Like digging into whatever. I need to see exactly how some flops play and heads up. That's fine. I can go and look. But I would like to get to more of a. I like the letter approach, basically, on my end, also.
yeah, yeah. That I mean, if it was just me trying to create content, I prefer the latter anyhow. So that
Oh, yeah,
works
so
out.
good. All right. Then we have, our incentives are fully aligned for this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So next time will be in that case will be 3-bet pots. Um, actually, well, if I'm gonna do
You don't want to
single
start
race
with like,
pot, if I'm gonna do single race pot stuff, I should just do it now, I guess. So next time will be brief overview on flop check raising. Not gonna get too much into that because if you honestly if you're well studied in late configuration ring, um, shouldn't be too hard for you to sort of sort that out. But the big
I mean,
thing,
yeah, I would just need to know what's different.
yeah, yeah, okay. There are some stark differences in different spots, so we'll touch on that for 15-20 minutes, and then the rest of the session will be um, 3-bet pot flop play.
Okay, cool.
3-bet pot flop play really is like the pinnacle of um, what makes heads up no limit so fun. Um, I mean, it's all a piece of the puzzle, but that's certainly something that everyone fucks up pretty bad. So we'll
And
we'll
and
get into
my
that.
and I have a like my I'm guessing it's because they have way more Broadway hands, like all the offsuit shit that calls. Is that
Yeah,
why?
yeah,
Okay. 'Cause I mean, I have a that's the kind of what I thought looking at the ranges. It would make a huge difference when people have so many Broadway hands.
yeah. And then there's also an interesting thing that happens on ace high boards that like if people haven't studied well. I'm not sure if okay. I can reveal
Sorry, we can leave it
some.
for the next video so people come
It's
back and
it's
watch.
it's just sort of fun because whenever you have like high break preflop simulations, you notice a lot of like shitty ace x starting to 3-bet a lot, um, and sort of a similar thing happens in heads up no limit, um, just because so many of the calls have an ace in them, um, because they just need just having a high card is so good in heads up. So what happens is like on ace high boards you just do so much betting, um, which is significantly different from a lot of blind versus imposition in ring. So
Yeah, I mean, big blind is not that different with like very polar ranges. I don't think it's that big a deal. I mean, also at least like it's not like ace high boards that are good when he's thinking about the big blind. But he's in the big size anyways.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
And it's not like in six max when you think about it big out of the big blind using the proper big sizes. It's not like ace high boards are amazing for you anyways.
Ace high boards are shitty.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Um,
So like, I don't. It doesn't seem very different.
no, it's
I
the
guess.
opposite in heads up.
Oh, heads up, the ace highs are good for you.
Yeah,
Because you're thinking about garbage aces and therefore. But isn't that calling too? Like I don't remember if you go back to look at the three bet defender ranges.
yeah.
There's not more ace X calling. Oh, I guess they're folding. Okay. Well, I see what's
As
going
far
on.
as ace X, it's pretty similar to ring.
Okay, so I see. So it is different. I guess it's more like a so you're betting on a small blind
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah. That's
Okay,
a
that makes
decent
sense.
comparison. Yeah. So
Okay, cool. So yes, we'll do that. We'll do that next time. You said you wanted to go through some flop stuff quickly, Joe, before we finish today. I guess single response you wanted to look at real quick or something.
like looking at some of the specific boards.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just gonna pull some of those up. We'll do a couple boards. We'll do like okay. So this is King Queen 3 two tone. Um, so something to notice is how little relatively small betting there is. And there's like a lot of the betting range is very big bets. So
So
this
this
is
is kind
two
of
X
like
pot.
Queen 10-3 in six max. This reminds me of Queen 10-3 in six max.
Yeah, yeah. Like on those queen high boards. Yeah. So this sort of relates to what we were talking about earlier, like the difference between Ace King X and King Queen X, six max versus heads up, where like the incentives of value hands is like sort of starts to shift to what the other configuration would be. Um, as far as hand class strength. Um, and then we look at say what the god damn it. There it is. Really need to reorganize my file explorer.
No, I think you should just put more stuff on your desktop.
Yeah, you're right, but it's hard when you have like 1,000 boards.
No. I think putting everything on your desktop will do really well. You don't have. I don't think you have enough random files.
Yeah, yeah,
Sprinkled all over your desktop.
yeah. I definitely don't have enough random things I never use on my.
Yep.
Yeah. Um. Okay, so let's see. I have King Queen 7 and King Jack Deuce. Okay, here's King Queen 7. So this is button versus big blind, six max. Um, ton of small betting, not very much big betting. This is also low rake, by the way, so there's going to be significantly more betting in this configuration than, say, like 500 NL rake. And then if we look at like,
There's also more big bang, isn't there?
yeah,
Maybe I
oh
just
for
don't
sure,
remember.
yeah, yeah, I can pull that up in a second as well. And this is King Jack Deuce two tone, basically a range bet for small.
Okay,
Um,
that way around. Zoom time.
What's that?
Now apparently we're running on my Zoom time.
Okay, well, we can shut this off here in a second. But just for reference, here is King Jack 8 two tone at 500 rake. And we also have King Queen 7 at 500 rake. I just end up hoarding Sims.
No, you're not about that GTO wizard life.
I'm not trying to start like a race war.
Uh, so yeah, it's like we already started.
How much time do you have left on it?
Probably like I don't even know. Let me see. Uh,
Oh, it's 8:35. Oh, we're fine.
I don't even know. How do you?
Well, there's a banner on my end. I can see it.
Okay, so okay. I have,
Yeah.
they're 40 minutes long. I don't know how long I've been going for.
Yeah, no,
Like
we're
the
fine.
free. Okay.
Okay, so here's King Queen 7. So this is 500 in a rake, button versus big blind. Um, yeah, a lot less betting, obviously. Um, but there's still a decent bit of small betting. Um, certainly more than heads up, and then we have a lot of like pot and 1.5 pot, like those big sizes. Um,
This is six max 500 rake.
yeah,
Okay.
and then this is
This
King
does
Jack.
look more familiar.
Yeah, exactly. And then King Jack 8 two tone. It's just big bets. But obviously that this board is much more wet, so
I mean,
um,
yeah, like it's I don't know what small betting would do here when like every single hand has a straight draw,
yep, yep.
and then the hands that don't have a straight draw, you're blocking the shadow with your own garbage.
Yes, like if out of position has a hand that they're gonna VPip against some bet less than like an overbet or something. Um, like when you maybe a better way to put it would be if you bet small and out of position has a hand they're going to VPip against that bet size. Like you're not generating EV against that hand. It's like if
Yeah,
you put
and
a
if they have a
quarter.
hand that folds, the hands that actually want to see that hand fold are blocking it like heavily,
Yeah, yeah,
which is the problem.
yeah, and then if you bet small and you fold out like the 7 high 6 high, those are hands that could have bluffed on later streets that were drawing dead
Yeah,
against.
yeah, they basically almost never turn any probing opportunities. So like,
Yeah,
uh, you know, they only really get to bluff in the check down line, and by that time, you could have bluffed them open like twice already.
yeah. It's also why learning the check back lines and delay lines on these high connected boards is so important. Just because out of position, like your equity realization on later streets is dependent on like largely dependent on how well you play those delay lines. Um, so yeah. Anyhow, Simon, thanks for joining me today. We will do this again. Um, I guess I haven't asked you how often you want to do this, or do you want to just wing it?
So, I mean, as often as you want to do it,
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
like
Give me.
I can do one tomorrow if you want.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've been grinding pretty hard, so give me a few days. If we could do sort of like midweek, maybe Wednesday.
Yeah, yeah, sounds good to me. Just let me know.
Okay. Sounds good.
No, the only thing I'll say is that if we can do this like earlier in my day at any point, if it's possible, I would love that.
Yeah, yeah. Issue is like earlier in your day is 3 hours earlier in my day. Um, so although I guess I could do this like I could try to make this like a lunchtime thing for me. Maybe
Yeah,
like
that'd be great.
three
Because
or
the
four
lunchtime
o'clock
would
your
be like
time.
my 5 o'clock.
Yeah, yeah, somewhere between like
Three
three or
o'clock
five
my
your
time.
time.
Yeah, yeah, because that'd be really good for me.
Okay.
And obviously, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
It's like,
obviously, no
because
one ever questioned that,
the
Simon.
world revolves around me, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if not, if not, then not. But if you can, if it's possible, just it'll be great.
just what? I know you're friends with Putin. I don't want to ruffle any feathers.
No, listen, I'm already like taking people's databases and using it against them. Don't put me in like the Putin conversation also. So I'm already banging
Wait,
on
wait, wait,
this.
wait, wait. Does Putin have someone's database?
100%. Why do you think he attacked Ukraine?
Oh my god.
He had that
Oh my
database.
god.
He thought he won.
That
He thought they were
that
drawing
that's
dead.
that's how they smashed him so bad.
That's really why he thought you could just do it. Apparently, it wasn't enough. The mistake was he didn't hire Thomas. Now, had he hired Thomas to run his offensive campaign, it would have worked out.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not going to go out of my way to ruffle any feathers. I think I got my anal cavity expanded uh, enough for the time being. So, um, yeah. Thanks for joining us, Simon. And I will see you probably Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay, talk to you later.
All right. See you.